say it was brothers.
In 1988, a bus of touring bluegrass musicians were traveling on a 4-lane freeway in the mountains near Roanoke, Virginia. This was a bus full of real-deal players, known as the Nashville Bluegrass Band. They were still 10 years away from the fame of being associated with the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Driving the van was the band's bass player, Mark Hembry. It was raining, the road was slick, visibility poor. Passing him on the left and soon out of sight was a vehicle with unbuckled children clearly cavorting in the back. Minutes went by. The weather was getting worse. Mark looked ahead. He was approaching a sharp turn in the road. Welcome to Wisconsinology on Music, a collaboration with 91.1 The Avenue and Wisconsinology.com.
If there's anything that you want, if there's anything I can.
Mark Hembry is from Appleton. A performance at Lawrence University by the Monroe Doctrine, a popular 1970s bluegrass band, converted him to the bluegrass cause. He took up the stand-up bass, and by the end of the decade, he was living in Nashville and at the top of the bluegrass heap, playing with Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys. Bill Monroe was the father of bluegrass music, a living legend and a ferocious performer. Being a backup musician for a living legend in the late 70s and early 80s does not pay well. After 5 years with Bill, Mark moved on to other bands. He was married and soon had a young family to raise. Then, as now, the only way for most musicians to make money was to hit the road. Which brings us back to where we began, on a rain-soaked mountain road in southwest Virginia, approaching a sharp turn in the road. As Mark rounded that turn, he looked ahead. In the near distance, traffic in both lanes was at a dead stop. Mark hit the brakes and began a long, grinding skid, knowing full well that he was going to crash. The question at hand was, where? He had 4 choices, all bad. To the immediate left was a sharp drop-off. To the right, vertical rock face. In the left lane ahead was the vehicle with the unbuckled kids playing in the back. In the right lane was the back end of a semi. Mark chose the semi and took the brunt of the impact. The rest of the band was fine. They had gigs to play, the show had to go on. Mark was transported to a small hospital where he lay on a gurney, heavily bandaged and sedated. He needed to get back to Nashville. A solo musician in the middle of his own tour was contacted and volunteered to take a detour and drive the near-comatose Mark back to his young family and a long road to recovery. Mark soon left Nashville and returned to Wisconsin. He settled down, got a desk job with Narada Records in Milwaukee, a major player in the then burgeoning field of New Age music. Years later, Mark and his wife were attending a music festival near Madison when she suddenly grabbed his arm and pointed out a performer who happened to be standing nearby. "That's him, she said. "That's the guy who brought you home." The musician looked up. He saw Mark, smiled, and said, "It's you." The man who took the time to drive a badly injured Mark Hembry was Bill Miller, a 3-time Grammy Award-winning Native American performer, artist, and like Mark, a Wisconsinite. Today, Mark Hembry is known as the Wisconsin Bluegrass Boy. He is also an author. His book, On the Bus with Bill Monroe, My 5-Year Ride with the Father of Bluegrass, is published by the University of Illinois Press. Bill Miller resides in La Crosse. He continues to perform and create art. For 91.1 The Avenue and Wisconsinology.com, I'm Frank Anderson.
Wisconsinology on Music is presented by a grant from the Bright Idea Fund from the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region, a supporting partner of The Avenue.